Your friends back home told you it was the money. Your adult children, maybe with the best of intentions, or maybe with their own complicated feelings about your happiness, said it plainly. She only wants what you have, not who you are. And part of you believed it. Of course, part of you believed it, because the culture you grew up in spent 40 years telling you the same thing in 100 different ways. The story is this: desire belongs to the young. Romance is for people under 50. A woman in her 20s or 30s who looks at a man in his 60s and feels something real is defying a natural law, and the only explanation is that she is not really feeling it at all. She is calculating. And so, when a genuine Filipino woman looks at you across a screen with that soft, open, curious attention that you have not felt directed at you in longer than you want to admit, your first instinct is not to lean in. Your first instinct is to look for the angle. I am Amara. I am 25 years old. I grew up in the province and I moved to Cebu City when I was 18, and I have spent years watching this exact dynamic play out from both sides. And I am going to tell you something, the full, unfiltered, culturally grounded truth about why traditional Filipino women are genuinely drawn to men your age. Not to your pension, not to your passport, to you. I will also show you, with real clarity, how to tell the difference between a woman who means it and one who is performing it. But first, I need you to stay with me right here. And if this is the kind of honest, insider truth you have been looking for, hit that subscribe button now, because the men who understand what I am about to tell you, who really absorb it, walk differently. And walking differently changes everything about who finds them. Let me tell you about a specific thing I have watched happen, because the detail matters more than any general point I could make. There is a man, I will call him Thomas, who has been video calling a woman from a small province in Iloilo for about 6 weeks. She is not a city woman. She grew up in a household where the rosary was prayed every evening without exception, and where her mother's word carried the weight of law. She is entirely sincere about him. She saves stories during her day to tell him specifically, little things, a funny conversation with her nephew, something she read, something she saw at the market. She asks Thomas about his adult children by name, and she remembers which one lives in Austin and which one is the one who does not call enough. She has started photographing the meals she makes on Sunday to send him. Not because he asked, but because she thought it would give him something tangible from her world to hold. And Thomas, good, thoughtful, self-aware Thomas, cannot receive any of it. Every time she says something warm, he deflects into something practical. Every time she expresses care, he says something like, "You do not have to be sweet. I understand how things work over there." I watched him say those exact words on a call once, and I watched her face do something very small and very final. She did not get angry. She would never get angry. She was raised in a culture where you express hurt through withdrawal, not confrontation. She just went a little quieter for the rest of the call and changed the subject. And the space where something real had been growing slowly began to cool. Thomas did not understand what he had done. He thought he was being realistic, mature, self-protective. What he had actually done was make a sincere woman feel that her sincerity was not believable, that she was not believable. And there is almost no recovery from that in our culture, because we do not argue for our own authenticity. If you do not believe us, we accept that, and we quietly move our care somewhere it will be received. The point is not that Thomas was a bad man. The point is that he had been told so many times, by so many voices, that he was not worth wanting at his age, that he had lost his ability to recognize the real thing when it was sitting directly in front of him. And that loss, that inability to receive genuine care, is the first and most devastating wall standing between you and the kind of relationship you are actually capable of having. I want you to think about every time in the last year you talked yourself out of believing something real. Every time you explained away warmth as strategy. Every time you received care and immediately looked for the price tag. That habit has been doing more damage to your chances than any scammer ever could. The scammer you can spot and block. The habit of disbelief, the one you carry inside yourself, goes with you everywhere. And it is the one thing I most want you to put down before you try anything else. Now I need to teach you something about our culture that will not translate cleanly into English, and that gap in translation is exactly why most Western men never fully understand what is actually happening when a traditional Filipino woman looks at an older man with real interest. In the Philippines, particularly in the provinces, in the traditional Catholic households, in the families that still eat together every Sunday and take the word of the elders as something sacred, age is not a diminishment. Age is a form of wealth that cannot be faked or transferred. When my grandmother moves through a room, every voice drops slightly, not because anyone decided to be polite, because inside everyone who grew up around her, the presence of someone who has lived a long life and survived it fully triggers something close to reverence. This is not a performance of respect. It is something wired into us from childhood. In Tagalog, we call a father figure tatay. But when traditional Filipino women talk among themselves about the energy they want in a partner, not the checklist, not the practical requirements, but the actual feeling they are looking for, they describe something that this word points toward. They describe the man who is already standing, not standing still, standing solid. The man who has already faced whatever life throws and come through it without falling apart. The man who does not need to perform certainty because he actually carries it, built over decades of real experience. The man who listens when you speak and does not reach for his phone while you are in mid-sentence. The man who decides where to go for dinner without asking 7 questions first, not because he is bossy, but because he is comfortable making a decision. In the West, you have been told this quality fades with age, that a man becomes less, gradually, as the years pass. In the Philippines, we have been taught our whole lives that this quality deepens with age, that it is what age produces in a person who has lived with any amount of integrity. When a traditional Filipina looks at a 65 or 68-year-old man who carries himself with that unhurried, settled dignity, she is not performing attraction. She is recognizing something she was raised to look for, something she has wanted since she was old enough to understand what it felt like to be with someone who already knows who they are. And here is what makes it especially powerful with older Western men specifically. You have a kind of confidence that our culture reads as very rare. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from having built something over a lifetime and carried it without needing anyone to applaud you for it. That reads as extraordinary to a traditional Filipina who was raised to see masculine maturity as one of the highest expressions of manhood. You are not behind the curve here. You are the thing she has been describing to her closest friend since she was 20 years old and could not quite find the words for it. But I promised you honesty, and honesty means I cannot give you only the beautiful part of this without giving you the sharp part too. Because there are women here. I know them. I grew up near some of them. I understand exactly how they think, who have studied this dynamic with great precision, and who use it deliberately against men like you. They understand that a man who has stopped believing he deserves genuine love is the most emotionally accessible person in the world. They know which words land and when to use them. They know how to move at just the right pace, close enough to feel real, fast enough to build obligation before trust has been established. And they are patient, which makes them harder to spot than you would think. So here's the clearest way I know to describe the difference between these two kinds of women. The genuine woman asks about your life before she asks about your situation. She wants to know your story, what you built, what you survived, what you are most proud of, what your grandchildren are like. She has opinions, and she will express mild disagreement occasionally about something small, or something she sees differently, or something cultural she wants you to understand correctly, because a woman performing a role never risks the performance by disagreeing. She needs you to see a version of her that works. A genuine woman just needs you to see her. She moves at the pace of real trust, warmth that builds gradually, care that shows up in small, unscripted details. She does not use words like forever and my destiny before she has known you long enough for those words to carry any weight. And when something difficult happens in her life, she shares it as information, not as a setup for a request. Now the woman who is calculating moves differently in every one of these areas. She arrives at your financial situation quickly and with more interest than the situation warrants. She escalates the emotional temperature faster than genuine feelings actually develop. She creates patterns of small needs, never too large, never too obvious, that always seem to arrive just after a moment of real emotional connection between you, as if she is keeping score of what the connection is worth. She uses permanent language too early. She makes you feel like you would be abandoning something sacred if you slowed down to ask a question. These differences are real. They are readable. And once you know what you are actually looking for, you will feel them before you can even fully articulate what tipped you off. The most important thing to remember is that genuine attraction feels relaxed. It does not carry urgency. It does not need anything from you before next Tuesday. It simply exists and expresses itself in small, consistent gestures that accumulate over time into something you can trust. That accumulation, that slow, steady, unpressured buildup, is the signature of something real. Anything that moves faster than trust is building usually deserves a second look. So, what do I actually want you to do right now, today, with everything I have just told you? The first and most urgent thing is this: you need to rebuild your right to be received. I know that sounds like something abstract, but it is the most practical instruction I can give you, because everything else depends on it. When a genuine woman shows you care, when she saves a story for you, when she rearranges her day to make time for a call, when she dresses up slightly for no reason other than wanting to feel nice when she talks to you, your job is to receive that as what it is, not to deconstruct it, not to find the explanation that makes it safe by making it small, but to simply say, with your whole presence, I see this, I believe it, thank you. That willingness to be seen and received without deflecting is one of the most attractive things a man can offer a traditional Filipino woman, because it tells her that her care is not wasted here. Second, carry the quality that draws genuine women toward you in the first place. That settled, grounded, unhurried gravity is not something all older men have automatically. It belongs to the men who have made some real peace with their own lives, who stand in who they are without constant apology or explanation. Men who are anxious and self-erasing will carry that anxiety in their body, in how they sit, in how they speak, in the small hesitations that accumulate into a picture. And traditional Filipinas, who are raised to read people with a precision that would genuinely surprise most Western men, will feel it long before any words are exchanged. The man who has arrived at himself, who knows what he has lived and does not shrink from it, is magnetic in a way that no amount of money or effort can substitute for. Third, and finally, trust the pace of real things. Genuine connection between a traditional Filipino woman and an older Western man does not need to be rushed. It does not need financial demonstrations or premature commitments or declarations that arrive before the foundation exists. If at any point early in a connection you feel pushed toward any of those things, if there is pressure you cannot quite name but can definitely feel, slow down. Watch the pattern. A woman who sees you and wants you for real has no clock running. She is not going anywhere. She found something she was not expecting, and she wants to see if it is as real as it feels. She will wait for you to stop doubting that she means it. The men who understand that, who stop spending all their energy protecting themselves from imaginary betrayals and start putting that same energy into showing up fully present, those are the men who find what they actually came looking for. Not a transaction, not a performance. A real woman from a real culture offering the kind of loyalty and warmth and genuine partnership that your own culture stopped believing in a long time ago. But the Philippines never did, and she has been here waiting with all of it. The question is only whether you are ready to receive it.